The wind outside was deafening, but it couldn't drown out the sound, the slow, deliberate toll of a bell, each chime closer than the last. My dog was rigid, growling low at the door, and that's when I saw him. A monstrous silhouette, horns twisting toward the skies, glowing sickly yellow in the darkness. He wasn't a story or a legend. Krampus was real, and he was here. For me. They always say the cold is what gets to you in the mountains, but for me it wasn't the cold that froze me that night. It was the sound. It began as a low, rhythmic chime, like a single bell swaying in a winter wind. I thought it was the church bells in the village below, echoing through the snowy valley. But it wasn't coming from the village. It was closer, much closer. I had rented the cabin for some much-needed solitude. Christmas had always been hard for me. My family was estranged, and every holiday season felt like a bitter reminder of the people I had lost, of connections that had snapped like brittle twigs. So, instead of enduring the endless cheer and fake smiles at the office, I decided to spend Christmas alone in the Austrian Alps, nestled in a small, old-world cabin with a roaring fireplace and nothing but the woods around me. The first few nights were peaceful. The wind whistled through the trees and the snow fell in soft waves, muffling every sound. But on Christmas Eve, the air grew heavier, the kind of heavy that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. It started with the bell. I was sitting by the fire, nursing a glass of whiskey, when the sound floated in through the window, a faint tinkling growing louder, closer. I paused, glass halfway to my lips, and listened. It wasn't the melodic, joyous sound of sleigh bells. No, this was different. Slower, deliberate, as though each chime was dragging something heavy behind it. I stood and went to the window. The snow had stopped falling, and the forest was dark, save for the faint glow of the moon reflecting off the icy ground. The bell continued, closer now. I squinted, but all I could see was the tree line, shadows swaying in the breeze, and then the breeze stopped. The entire forest seemed to hold its breath. That's when I saw it. At first, I thought it was an animal, a deer, maybe, but as it stepped into the clearing, the shape was all wrong. It was tall, unnaturally tall, with twisted, jagged horns curling upward from its head. Its body was hunched, its long arms nearly dragging on the ground, and its fur, if you could call it that, was matted, black and greasy, like it had been dragged through mud and ash. My breath caught in my throat as the thing stepped further into the moonlight. Its face, God! I'll never forget that face. It was part goat, part man, a grotesque hybrid of sharp, jagged features. Its eyes glowed a sickly yellow, and its mouth stretched into a hideous grin, exposing rows of pointed teeth. Around its neck hung a chain, heavy and rusted, and at the end of that chain dangled the source of the sound, a single oversized bell that swayed with each step. I backed away from the window, my heart pounding. It couldn't be real. I had heard the stories growing up, the legends of Krampus, the Christmas demon who came for the wicked. But those were just tales to scare children, weren't they? Something parents whispered to keep their kids in line? And yet here it was. I fumbled for my phone, but my hands were shaking so badly I dropped it onto the wooden floor. The thud was deafening in the silence, and I froze, my eyes darting back to the window. The creature had stopped. Its head snapped toward the cabin, those glowing eyes locking onto mine. My blood turned to ice. It knew I was there. The bell rang again, louder this time, and the thing began to move, stalking toward the cabin with slow, deliberate steps. I stumbled backward, grabbing a poker from the fireplace, though I knew it was useless against something like this. My mind raced. Should I hide? Run? Fight? The cabin door rattled. My breath hitched as I turned to face it, the poker clutched tightly in my hands. The doorknob twisted, slowly, deliberately, and then came the knock. 3 loud, booming knocks that echoed through the cabin. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My legs refused to move, my voice caught in my throat. The thing outside let out a low, guttural growl, a sound that vibrated through my chest and made my stomach churn. And then came the voice, deep, gravelly, and inhuman. "You've been bad," it rasped, each word dripping with malice. "Very, very bad." I don't know what came over me, but something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the fight or flight instinct kicking in, or maybe it was sheer panic, but I screamed, an incoherent primal scream, and lunged for the door, slamming the poker against it as hard as I could. The metal bent under the force, but the sound seemed to startle the creature. It let out a sharp snarl, and the bell rang again, this time retreating. I dared to look out the window. The creature was backing away, its glowing eyes still fixed on the cabin. It dragged its chain behind it, disappearing into the forest with long, loping strides. The bell faded, growing fainter and fainter until it was swallowed by the silence of the night. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even sit down. I stayed in the corner of the cabin, clutching the bent poker, staring at the door until the first light of dawn broke through the trees. When I finally dared to step outside, there were tracks in the snow, massive, cloven hoofprints leading to the cabin and then away into the woods. But there was something else. On the cabin's doorstep lay a bundle of birch branches, tied together with a strip of blood-red ribbon. It wasn't just an object, it was a message. My hands trembled as I picked it up, and I swear I could still feel the faint vibration of that bell echoing through the wood. I left the cabin that morning, abandoning my things and driving straight to the airport. I didn't care about the cost of an early ticket or the state of my luggage. I just needed to get out of there. It's been years since that night, but the memory hasn't faded. Every Christmas Eve I hear that bell in my dreams, slow and deliberate, a haunting reminder of what I saw. And every year I wonder, what would have happened if I had opened that door? But the birch branches, those worry me most. Because they say Krampus leaves them as a warning, a promise. And as much as I try to tell myself it's over, that he's gone, I can't shake the feeling that one day he'll come back. This time, for me.